Hey everybody, this is Al Nash from the Unapologetic Woman Empowerment Dynasty, and you're listening to the Unapologetic Woman Podcast, the show for women who choose to live their legacies, unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. If this is a space you're curious about, visit unapologetic-woman.com. Today we're talking about the power of one another with Genevieve Piturro, best-selling and 5-time award-winning author, inspirational speaker, purpose consultant, founder of the Pajama Program. Oprah once said, "One woman came up with her own idea to honor her calling, and her name is Genevieve Piturro." A successful TV executive, Genevieve dramatically changed direction and found purpose when a 6-year-old girl's question rocked her life. She founded the national organization Pajama Program in 2001. Genevieve is an inspirational speaker consultant. She shares life and leadership lessons from her 5-time award-winning bestseller, Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas, How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning. Understanding how pivotal purpose and the human connection are in leadership, team building, and the bottom line, Piturro designs personalized keynotes embracing these 2 pillars of success. A TEDx speaker, Genevieve has been interviewed on Oprah, Today, GMA, The Early Show, CNN, Fox & Friends, Hallmark's Home and Family Show Huckabee, O Magazine, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. Genevieve rang the NASDAQ bell in 2016, and now she's having a conversation with us. Thanks for joining us. This is Genevieve. So first of all, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Al.
Isn't it amazing how we are being connected all over the world at the moment? It's as though the universe is conspiring to just bring together heart-led women in the most unexpected ways. And I'm so
I think it's about time.
It is about time. My magazine's coming out tomorrow, and the theme is like a woman. And I do believe that we are in an era of the woman, not from a matriarch perspective, not from an overthrowing or overshadowing the masculine again, but an era where women get to lead from within themselves, first and foremost, and just end so many of the toxic cycles that we have found ourselves in and start something new. And it's happening through these conversations.
I think it's great. And I know you do too. I can just see the smile on your face. This is something that you're really, really just enjoying so much.
Yeah, because I think women are really powerful. I think we are way more powerful than we have ever given ourselves credit for, and not in the way of achievement, even though we have achieved some sensational things. One of the beautiful things as I was reading the articles of the magazine was every woman picked up positive traits of being a woman and how it can be used in business, in life, in the bed, wherever. And by the time I was done reading all the articles, I'm like, damn, we're kind of special. Like we are actually really fabulous. And I'm so happy to be a woman. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I agree with you. Everything you said. So time.
You have an incredible story, and I wanted to unfold naturally if it's meant to unfold today. But I want to start with the question that I start every conversation, Jen, and that is, what does it mean to you to be an unapologetic woman?
I think it's okay. You mentioned it. I think it's okay to lead with our heart. I have done that the last 24 years. I did not do that in business before. I was in business. I was in the corporate world for 12 years. I rarely led with my heart. Mm-hmm. But in this endeavor, in this beautiful personal project over the last 20 plus years, I have to say it's felt great and natural. And now in the last few years, certainly the pandemic brought it out. It's not just okay, it's proving to be the best way to lead.
Why do you think we struggled so much prior to that crossroads that so many of us hit to live from hearts?
I think that we were just so used to having bosses. And, for a lot of us, that meant mostly it was a male dominated title for a lot of us, not all the time. And I think that they led then very differently than they're leading now for a lot of reasons. But I think for a long time, some people call it military style leading. It was just a boss type of leadership. This is what I need. This is what we're doing. This is what I expect of you. There was never do you have any ideas? We make this better? There was no open door, Q&A session in any of the meetings that I was in. And I think that we were just used to it. And like anything that you get used to, you accept it.
So that's interesting for me, because at the moment, for the past few years already, there is the whole hashtag boss babe, boss girl, boss woman movement. Do you think that is still playing a little bit into that masculine drive energy to be a boss babe or a boss girl? Do you think that is still a little bit of a hangover, or do you think that is moving into something different?
I think those who are choosing to use that are making a statement that a boss, as a strong person and as a woman, brings a different set of traits. And I think that they're meant to be putting a positive spin on boss. So I don't think that any woman wants to be the type of male boss they had. I think they want to show the world it's not the word boss that's necessarily 100% awful. Mm. And let me show you what a boss can be, as in, we should all be boss of our lives. We should all be not bossy, that's different, but we should all be smart bosses in our own lives. So I don't think that they're trying to mimic just a female face, what men had as bosses. I think they're putting a very positive, maybe you could say softer side, but I think softer is good. I think the men who are learning what soft means now are stronger.
I have to say, looking back on my corporate career, I just somehow was really blessed. I never had a domineering male boss. My male managers, bosses were some of my greatest supporters, mentors, advocates. I was so blessed. I so often listened to women's experience in corporate, and I'm thinking, damn, how did I get lucky enough to not get that? I mean, I had many other life lessons with regards to the toxic masculine, make no mistake. Mm-hmm. But in work, for some reason, that was not my path. That was not the experience I was meant to have. So that's always interesting for me. And I'm so grateful. I kiss my own bottom when I talk about some of the experiences women have. And kind of go, oh, thank you, universe, that was not my experience, that I got to see the beautiful in male management and male leadership, right? So, yeah. But then you came to a point in your life, and you've shared the story with me, and I'd love for you to share a little bit of that story, if that's okay with you, with the listeners, because I think it is so pivotal. I think there's a lot of women going through that moment of something's not right anymore, but I don't know what next. And I think your story is just such a beautiful example of what happens when we surrender and just allow ourselves to be present and guided by hearts.
Yes, of course. I was a corporate ladder climber. I wanted to be. I grew up wanting to be Mary Tyler Moore's Mary Richards character, if you remember. she was a single woman in a man's world. She had a beautiful place to live, great friends. She had, her family was her work, were her work teams. And I wanted to be that. I grew up in a very traditional Italian family, very loved. I loved my parents and my brothers and sister. But as the firstborn, I was expected, I felt always, to get a job and to get married and have kids. And that wasn't my my drum. I wasn't marching to that drum, and it was very hard to tell my parents. So I started climbing that corporate ladder, and I know that they were disappointed for the most part for those 12 years that I wanted to make it to that corner office. They were proud, they loved me, but they always, I think, had hoped that along the way I'd say, I want to get married and have kids. I didn't. But 12 years in of this crazy life that I did love, because to me that was success, that was status. This is 25 years ago, more than that, 30 years ago when I started. And that's what I thought success was, and breaking away from the traditional, hold. But 12 years in of this crazy life, I was sitting quietly in my apartment, and I heard a voice in me ask me. Now, the voice came from here. I'm pointing to my heart, right? I know that chatter very well up here, and it wasn't up here. This voice asked me simply, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? And it stopped me. I mean, first I heard a voice, and then I realized in seconds, something's missing. And it took me couple minutes until I realized, what? There's something about children that I feel I miss. I don't think I could run out and have them right now, but I think I could find a way to bring them into my life. I think I have something to give. I certainly want to have them in my life for my personal reasons. I know I could do something and I could feel fulfilled. That's whatever's missing. So I started reading in shelters to children at night. And I never expected to feel so grounded and so connected to these children. Now, these were emergency shelters. I had no idea what the inside of one looked like. All I saw was news reports of police and social workers going in and banging and getting the kids out of a situation where those who were supposed to be taking care of them were hurting them. And these were the children at these shelters who were those victims. And as I read to them, week after week, I was in my business suit. I was sitting on the floor because they didn't have adult chairs in these rooms. The little ones were just sitting, watching me, staring at me. Some were crying or had been crying. They were all there 24 hours or less. And they were in soiled clothes, tight clothes, whatever they had when the police or social worker brought them in. And they were being processed, which is a horrible word. So I read to them, and I just felt so grounded, and I bonded with them, and they hardly said a word. They just stared at me, and I just read and read. One night I said, I wonder where they're going to sleep, because that's where they were going after I read to them. And the staff assembled them to go into the other room, and I followed. And when I saw the equally bare room and the futons and the couple of kids in one on one surface holding and hugging each other, sniffling, some of them were crying, and in the same tight clothes. And I mean, I could smell the odor on these clothes that they'd been wearing for so long. I couldn't imagine how they were sleeping through that. And I immediately remembered my bedtime with my mom, and she came to our beds, 4 of us kids, and read our stories, and we were laughing and, having milk and cookies and pajamas, of course. But I looked, and that's what stood out to me. So as I was leaving, still sort of stymied from feeling, sick to my stomach about that picture I saw, I asked if I could bring pajamas the next week. And one of the staff said, that'd be so nice. That'd be great. So I did. And when I finished reading the stories to the children that were there that night, I started giving pajamas out. And I was so excited, and I was so happy. And the kids took them and went with the staff to the other room where they were going to go to sleep. But one little girl was too afraid of me. She didn't want to take the pajamas, but I couldn't imagine why she'd be afraid. But she kept shaking her head no, and backing up and backing up. And I kept prompting her, please, honey, feel these. They're so soft. And I hauled them up. Look, they'll fit you, and they're pink. And you have pink in your shirt. And her shirt was soiled and purple. Her pigtails were lopsided and her pants were too short and her shoes were too big. And, my heart was breaking and I didn't understand. And I went over because she watched me give them to the rest of the kids. And I went over and I knelt down to get eye to eye. And I tried to show her how soft. And I told her, why don't you touch them? Feel how soft, and you can keep them. And I thought maybe she thought she'd have to give them back. I said, you can keep them and you can sleep in them and you can even wear them all day tomorrow. Don't you want your pajamas? And finally she leaned in and she whispered, what are pajamas? And that was the moment that everything shifted, in my body, in my heart, in my soul, and my head just couldn't get my head around that question. And I had to explain pajamas to this little girl. And as I was doing it, half of my brain was saying, this is awful. This is not acceptable. I need more pajamas. And I just couldn't stop thinking of her. They put the pajamas on and she gave me this little smile. And that was it. I was a goner. My love and my enthusiasm for that wonderful job and life I thought I had was falling by the wayside because my heart was now full with, these kids and the idea of bringing them pajamas, which was, I realized soon it was love, it was comfort, and they had been missing that for so long. And at bedtime, the most vulnerable time.
I know the system does what the system can do, but it's so little. The system takes care of basic needs, right? But not the emotional needs. And thank God for people like you who step up and just do without thinking of what's the profit that can be made from this, or, what's the long-term thing. It's just like right now in this moment, what do these kids need?
Yeah. And I have to say that the staff, for the most part, they're wonderful, but they have their hands full and they're keeping them safe.
Yeah.
And that was priority, and they kept them warm and they kept them, those who were hurting them, away. And I get that. And the little things, like pajamas, they're not necessary, but for me, there was so much behind that I never realized until that moment. And I tell my mother to this day, she's 88, she's proud, she loves going to Pajama Program things. And I say it to her, and I say it in public, it's because she showed me the bedtime that I thought all children had. And she gave us, and moms give the kids, the safety, the security, the love at bedtime, so that we have a dream and not a nightmare. And all I kept thinking was, how are these kids going to have a good night? They're going to be crying. They're going to have horrible, horrible nightmares. Not that I thought pajamas would fix it, but that was my instinct. And, 20 some years later, I believe that we were and we are giving them love and comfort, even if they don't see our faces, they know it's there.
How many PJs have you given out by now?
More than 7 million. More than 7 million around the United States, with 40 some chapters in many states. And 20 years of being executive director, and of course I'll always be founder, I've been asked so many times to talk about purpose, because that's what I found, and nobody had ever said to me when I was looking for a job, think about your purpose. I don't know if anybody ever said that to you. That word was not in my world. Yeah. And I found out, that's what happened to me. I found purpose. And so I always would talk about it and share. And so I wanted to, after 20 years, pass the baton. So now we have a terrific executive director who's running the show, and I have started my part 2 purpose to do this with you, to share about and to teach about purpose and value, and and write another book. I wrote one. So that's my part 2 of a purpose.
And I want to pause just for a moment to allow for people to actually just let this touch their hearts. So over 7 million pairs of pajamas. Blessing, right?
Yes.
Amazing. And over 7 million children needing pajamas.
Yeah, I
How
know. And
blind do we choose to be to what's happening to the children in our world? And those are just the chapters that you are touching, right? That's not the world. Like, that's huge. That's huge.
it is. And, I had an idea, and people would say all the time, like I used to say, and people say it, oh, one idea, one person, look how you change the world. But that's not it at all. It's one person. It's not one person that changes anything. It's not the power of one, like people say. It's the power of one another that moves mountains and moves people. And that's how we get things done. Not just Pajama Program, but that's how we get things done.
Let's go there. The power of one another. I've never heard anybody say that before. And that is so potent and so powerful, because I also
Yeah,
feel like
it's not the power of one.
we are moving out of the idea of, oh, look at me and what I have accomplished. Me in and of myself have accomplished nothing on my own. Whether it is us starting to acknowledge that we are co-creating with the universe or co-creating with other people, like everybody is on one team, Team Humanity, and we are all touching each other's lives. And isn't it about time that we start being a little bit more aware of that? Because we see all these people feeling so lonely and isolated, and I'm like, but that's why, because you still think it's about you, and nothing is accomplished by an individual. Every business is built by people coming together. Every business, every movement is through people coming together. Everything needs more than one. The
You're
power
right,
of one
100%.
another. Can you talk a little bit more into that, like your discovery of that, and what you feel when you say the power of one another and what that means to you?
Sure, sure. Well, because of the way I began Pajama Program, and I had a full-time job, I kept it a secret because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with all these overwhelming feelings and the tears. I'm a big crier. And I'm, supposed to be a dedicated employee and a successful businesswoman. And I couldn't keep my focus there anymore. And I also couldn't imagine telling anybody in my world, even my family, listen, after 12 years of doing this, I met this little girl. I really want to give pajamas and books to kids all day long and all night long, every 7 days a week. I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage. I don't know about anything. That sounds ridiculous. And it sounded ridiculous to me. So I didn't say a word. And I just juggled, and there's, I put in my book at the end of every chapter, it's the journey, the good, the bad, and how it all turned out. And I put heart of the matter lessons. And one of them is leave juggling to the clowns, because that was one of the worst mistakes I made, excuse me. But when I started, because out of necessity, telling people what I was doing, I was amazed and touched at the reaction, at the help I was offered, at being able to ask dumb questions. What do I do? Is this a job I could get? What can I do? I have a mortgage. I want to quit. It was just a beautiful discovery that the human connection is there for us, and we just don't embrace it. We don't trust it, and we don't trust ourselves. We're afraid, we're embarrassed. We think we don't know enough. We don't want to be found out. All those things I thought. I still grapple with it sometimes too. But the human connection is real. There's energy that you want to bring in the universe. You're saying God or whatever you want to call that invisible force that's on our side. It is very real. And I think when you're on purpose and you're authentic and you're real and you're trusting and you reach out, the universe feels that energy is beautiful, and it helps, and it's there, and it's supportive. But it's hard to tell somebody who hasn't experienced it that you can trust people. You've got to open up. Don't be afraid. No questions dumb, like they say. You'll see magic come to your way. But it's true. It's the way we're supposed to be living.
Yeah, but it's tough, right? Because we are raised in a culture of we have to look like the expert, we have to look like we have our shit together, we have to look a certain way, speak a way for people to respect us, for people to like us, for all of these things. And I kind of wonder how many dreams are dying, how many movements never come to light because people are afraid to kind of go, I have this dream, I have this desire, I have this idea that's ludicrous and I don't know where it's going to go. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure on us to know. And I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was saying to her, for the first time in my life, I'm not pushing the vision of my business. I'm not trying to figure it out. I am just taking action every day from where I'm at and going, I'm open to seeing, and I'm having conversations. And after every conversation, I'm like, oh, little piece of the puzzle, little piece of the puzzle. But when I get on a call with anybody, they're like, but what are you doing? And who is it with? And what are you selling? And what is it? And if you can't tell them, well, let me help you find it out. And I go, no, I don't want to push this process. I don't want to rush this process because I was doing a live yesterday and I was going, ideation is like being pregnant, and we seem to be birthing babies, prem babies, all of the time because we're not allowing for the full maturation of the dream, the idea to incubate within us before we show up and deliver something. We think we have to produce all of the time, and it's okay for us not to. It's okay for us to go, no, I'm just pregnant with this idea and I can talk about it, but don't ask me to open up my stomach so you can see what it is, right? But
Yes.
it's that fine line of trusting that people will be okay with that and starting to be okay with that with other people, and then just going, how do I support you in the interim? Is it a
Right.
cup of coffee? Is it a conversation? What do you need? Do you need to be introduced to somebody? I find it fascinating that women still seem to struggle with the ask. Like, even when I offer, who do you need to be introduced to at the moment? I have an incredible network. Like, what is it that you need? Women really struggle with the ask. Are
Yes.
you finding that as well? And how do we break that paradigm? How do we break that loose?
For me, I had to, and I'm sorry that I had to wait so long to feel like I was going to burst and I couldn't do it on my own. So felt like I was forced to ask. But once I did, the floodgates opened. I asked everything and everyone. So that's definitely something I encourage people to do. I I think, I don't know if it comes from being a nurturer. Mother knows all the answers, and if you're a mom, you're expected to know all the answers, and you just always know the answers. And maybe there's something there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know why women have a hard time asking for any reason other than we don't want to be embarrassed and we don't want to seem like we don't know something, or
Yes.
that we feel we should know and we're lesser than, because look at that person probably knows everything. And I don't know, we have a lot of insecurities, so do men, that came from maybe a household where the parents ruled and knew everything and put us down when we asked a question or didn't. All it takes, I think, is to be in that vulnerable age where somebody makes a comment like, I can't believe you asked a stupid question or something like that. And because there's so much research on that age, under 7, I think, where we're so raw that we take everything in and then we live it the rest of our lives and don't even know why we're afraid to do this or that. So I don't know why, but I know we share that, sadly.
And I really feel like it's time for us to work on that for ourselves, not necessarily with everybody else. But so I'm going to invite every woman today to have an ask, whether they have an ask from either one of us in the comments, or whether they go out into the world and ask something of somebody. It doesn't have to be big, it can be something small, but we have to start practicing the ask. We have to start practicing that it's okay for us. people can either say yes or no.
Mhm.
I have found personally that people are way more wanting to say yes than wanting
Yes,
to say no.
I agree, Elle. And
If
people,
in their power,
yeah,
you know.
I agree. I agree. I was surprised. I'm always surprised when the overwhelming number of people say yes, male or female. People want to help. And I love being asked for help. If I can
Yes.
help, I want to do it. And I will do it 99.9% of the time. You know, if there's something I can do. And I feel like that's giving back. And I think people are getting it. I think people are getting it. And the other sad thing to me is that I hear a lot of people saying it's too late to do what they really want to do. And that breaks my heart. And I try to, stand on a rooftop and yell, it's never too late. It's not too late. It's not. You could be 75. And if you look at the stats, the most incredible inventions and things happened between age of 65 and 75, and it's never too late. It's sad. It's sad that people think that, and people wait till the kids leave, till I have enough money, till this or till that. Don't
And
wait.
and the amount of pressure we put ourselves when we are so young. I look at back on my life, and I think if I had to tell my younger self anything, it would be to, honey, relax. There's more than enough time later. I would have spent more time with my kids, and I would have worked less. And I know that this sounds crazy to people, but I feel like now at 50, I'm only ready to really start the business that I'm here to build. Everything
Mhm.
up until now was just me getting ready.
Yeah, that doesn't sound crazy to me. I get
Yeah,
it.
I feel like now I'm ready to start.
Yeah,
But I
good
would
for
say
you.
to my younger self, spend more time with the kids, switch your laptop off at night,
Mm,
be more present with life, do less and just enjoy more.
mm.
There's so much pressure that I put on myself. And it's interesting because I have the most amazing partner. And he always listened to me and he goes, you do know it's all self-imposed, right? You do know it's all the stuff in your head. And I go, yeah, I get that. And I always felt that there was an expectation of me to perform a certain way, to achieve certain things, to be a certain way. And I didn't want to disappoint myself, and I didn't want to disappoint people. I
Yeah,
really love the high achievement role, which is something that I'm now choosing to leave behind very intentionally. And it's probably one of the hardest identities that I've chosen to leave behind. But
that's great. That's a great share.
yeah, and it's tough. I'll tell you, it's tough to because society still praises the high achiever.
Yes.
Um, and I'm shifting into no, I don't want to achieve anymore. I want to create. I want my life to be art. I want artistry in life. You
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
you can't achieve that. That's practice. That's just daily practice in being present with life today.
Yes.
And what do I get to create in a beautiful world to make it even more beautiful as my
Mhm.
little contribution, right?
That's your legacy. You don't want your legacy to be, I don't want mine to be, I got to the corner office.
No, and not making that wrong for people either. Like if that's where
Right.
you are on your journey, and if that's your journey, then I'm not making that wrong either.
Right. That wasn't, turned out to be not
Yes,
mine.
yes, exactly. But we all thought it was. We all bought
Right. Right.
into that is the dream. And I look at young mothers, and more young mothers are choosing to stay at home at the moment, to close down their businesses and be present with their babies. And
Mhm.
I can see how hard it is for them, and they withdraw almost because they kind of feel like I can't be part of this world anymore. And
Mhm.
I go, oh my God, I have such admiration for you for your choice. Like,
Mhm.
I'm here to support you. Like, let us older ladies actually embrace the younger women who are going through the beginning of motherhood. And I think it's a responsibility that we almost have as older women to go, hey, it's okay. Be present where you are. Look at us. We're starting at 50, 60, 70 and creating the legacies, the dynasties at this age. so that, because we didn't really have that example, did we? We didn't really
No,
have that
no.
example of what is possible when a woman reaches 50 beyond. And now
Right.
we get to start creating that.
Right. And you can be a corporate ladder climber and have that office, but the way you treat people and the especially now coming out of the pandemic, and we're all redefining work and how and where we do it. And you can be an inspiring leader with a fabulous office at the top of your game. And that's your legacy. Not that you got to the corner office, it's what you do with it.
Yes, yes. I think there's a lot of work to be done in corporate. I hear so many women are leaving corporate, and if that's your path, again, amazing, brilliant. But I almost feel like they're leaving corporate because they think that corporate needs to end. And I'm going, no. Corporate needs to change. It doesn't need to end. Corporate has a really important role to play in society, and
Right.
even in providing jobs for
Yes.
mothers and people.
Right. Not everybody's an entrepreneur. Right.
Exactly. But it takes a courageous woman to stay in corporate in today's world and then be the change.
Right.
And so applause to those women.
Yes, I agree. I think the word that I'm finding myself leaning toward more and more is all of us, whether you're at that corporate office or you are starting out, you want to be inspired. And you also want to get to a point where you are inspiring others, because that's a very different leader, right? That's definitely not a boss. That is a very special person who's learned through being inspired that's the key. That's the difference that I think we're leaning toward now. That inspiration that we're looking for and that we need to give.
Inspired, I read once, came from the Latin in spirit. And it is when we are living in complete integrity and in spirit that we feel inspired and we allow others the opportunity to be inspired. And I say allow others the opportunity to be inspired because when we are our best selves, we inspire some and we repulse some, right? Like we trigger some people and they don't like being in our presence. And I think for women especially, it's also about learning to be okay with that, learning to be okay with we can't inspire everybody. We can't be everybody's cup of tea. But you look yourself in the mirror and be your own cup of tea? Because once you are really proud of who you see in the mirror, once you love who you see in the mirror, you show up differently in the world. And that took me 47 years to learn.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, the first time I got some good advice to say that looking at myself in the mirror, it was hard to look myself in the mirror and say, I love you. You're doing just fine. Don't worry about it. You have more power than you realize. All those wonderful affirmations that really help us through some doubt and fear that we have, especially when we're starting something new. It does sadly feel uncomfortable to hear that to ourselves from ourselves.
What is next for you, darling?
Well, now I'm speaking about finding purpose. So first I did the Pajama Program to help the children. And through it, I learned the importance and value of finding purpose and legacy. So now I'm speaking and writing another book on the value and purpose and supporting and encouraging others to find their purpose and live with it and lead it and make it their North Star. I think we're ripe for that after the pandemic.
Question keeps popping up in my head. Did you ever reconnect with that little girl?
Not her. Others who I met early on stayed in our program, either found a foster parent or grew up in the orphanage and did well. And, a couple of them favorites that came to one of our events and spoke. She was 2 when I met her, and I put a big picture of her holding her pajamas at 2 and then introduced her. And here comes this 18-year-old, beautiful, loving, wonderful woman who announced she was going to college and, talked about that. And that, that's like, that made everything worth it. And that gave me peace.
Must have been hard. It would have been hard for me, I'll speak for myself, to meet these children, read them stories, give them the PJs, and walk away.
Oh,
Um,
I cried a lot.
oh my
I
God.
cried. We had a reading center in the early days. The kids would come and they wouldn't want to leave. They would hide in the hopes that, when they were getting all corralled to go back on the bus or back to wherever they were going to sleep, they didn't want to go. And, they would hide to be with us. Heartbreaking. I have so many stories. I only put a few in the book because, can't put them all in there. But yeah, I remember some of those things that were difficult. And I remember the joy, the fun things they said and how they, run into our arms and couldn't wait to come, and all kinds of wonderful things. There was a little girl in Chicago I visited early on. I visited her orphanage and I brought boxes of pajamas, and she got a pair and she knew they were from me, and I was sitting with the kids and she ran over to me and she gave me a hug and she whispered in my ear, "Thank you for the pajamas. Can you bring me shoes next week?" So I mean, just priceless kids.
As the sand mother to so many children.
I'm sorry, what mother?
The sand mother, because you're not the sand man. You don't.
Oh, I've never heard that.
I've just made it up for you. I just
Thank
thought it was
you.
apt.
That's
Because
nice.
the Sandman is the one that brings us into dream, right? Into
Yes.
dreamland. And these kids didn't have the Sandman, but they had you as a sand mother to come and comfort them, to guide them into dreamland.
I like that. Thank you.
As the sand mother to so many children, what do you want to say to mothers who might be listening in how they put their kids to bed tonight?
Yes, they say to me all the time, which is so touching, "I'm going to give my little boy, little girl extra hug and extra kisses tonight." I can imagine how any of these children don't have that. And so I hear that, and that's what I love, to know that we appreciate the children, the beauty of being a mom. I never had children. This is as close as I got. I have godsons, I have nieces and nephews. So I can appreciate, but I don't know how deep the love goes except to see it in my sister and my mom. So to hear that they, who have a routine and a love that they don't take for granted, but that they just can't imagine is absent for others, just that they are going to make that extra effort because of the kids that they've realized don't have it, touches me. And so I think that that's valuable for all of us to know.
I think motherhood is about giving birth. I think motherhood is about choosing to take care of children. And so there can't be much of a greater mother than you, Jen. Just going to.
Oh, well, thank you. But my hat's off to mothers who have, who've given birth, and ups and downs of daily life. It's a beautiful, beautiful legacy in itself.
As we bring this conversation to a close, unfortunately, what is one thing that you take an unapologetic stance for in the world?
That you shine, you find your purpose, and you stand in it, and you don't make any apologies. I don't care if your purpose is that you want to sing and you have the worst voice, find a place to sing. I think any church would take you. Do it. Doesn't matter if you're making money at it, because if you are giving your purpose life, then you will feel the change in you, in your life, and so will everyone else in your life. So just let it out. Stand tall, let it out.
Just beautiful, Jen. Thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. To everybody who's listening, I'm going to put Jen's contact details in the description. So if you want to connect with her, please do. If you want to support the Pajama Project, please do. 7 million children. You know, I don't see 7 million pairs of pajamas. I just keep seeing 7 million children, and how many more millions of children don't have something that we take so for granted. And I just think about, you know, having a PJ day, that is for us the ultimate comfort day, right? And I can't even imagine not having PJs to go to sleep. And my partner complains because I've got sexy PJs, but then when my nights are when I just need comfort, it's not sexy PJs. It is
Wow.
it's you know, warm and comfort and soft and all of that, and everything that it represents for me.
Yes, the emotional part of it is big.
And what it does to our system in how it touches our skin and how it makes us feel, right? Everything, it actually calms us down. There's a ripple effect to
it's true. It's true. Yeah. And your listeners can go to pajamaprogram.org and find everything out. And if they have any questions or they want to talk to me or if I can help, I have my website, GenevievePiturro.com.
Ladies, if we can support you with anything, ask in the comments. Anything that's in our power, we will say yes to. And chances are, if it's not in our power, we might know somebody who does have what you need to shift the needle today. And ultimately, that's what this is all about. This is all about us playing together in shifting the needles for each other. Because when one woman wins, everybody wins. When one person wins, everybody wins. One team, team humanity. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you took a lot away out of today. And as always, remember, we get to live our legacies unleashed, unlimited, and unapologetic. Have an amazing day further. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Unapologetic Woman and on LinkedIn at Al-Naj. And if you're interested in experiencing the Unapologetic Woman Friendwork Soiree, book in for our next open meeting at unapologetic-women.as.me/unapologetic. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.